Alrighty, welcome. Episode number 5, Bet the Beach Live, here on the Bet the Beach YouTube channel. And if you can, I got to remind you to like and subscribe. It certainly helps us out. You can hop in the chat, follow us on our socials. It is at Bet the Beach, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. A lot of good stuff to talk through tonight. A lot of good stuff to get to. We have an Elite 16 in Brasilia. Elite 16s are the cream of the crop internationally. Only 3 more events remaining before the Olympic qualification window ends for the 2024 Paris Olympics. We have an event in Espinho, Portugal. We have an event in Staria Blanki, Poland. And then we have the final event in the Czech Republic in Ostrava, the final Elite 16 of the qualification window. So we got a lot of movement, ups and downs. Basically, the big storylines now are federations with 3 teams fighting for 2 spots. There is a little bit of a cut line drama on the bubble, so we'll get to all of that when we get to our Olympic preview. We also have some AVP to talk about. We are now 8 days away from the first Heritage Series event of the 2024 season. It is the Huntington Beach Open, and it starts next Thursday with the on-site qualifiers out there at Huntington Beach, California. What does it mean? What's at stake? It's a whole new season this year. All the events lead up to that AVP League that starts in September, so we will remind you what each of these individual Heritage Series events mean as far as qualification for that domestic league. We'll get you some odds for who's going to qualify, and we also talked about that a little bit on the blog this week in greater detail. So if you don't mind heading over to betthebeach.com, not if you don't mind, but if you want a little bit more detail, a little bit more, interactive social media, drop-ins, clicks, and links, and I can get into a little more detail there on the blog, and I did that yesterday. BetTheBeach.com, who is qualifying for the AVP League, and it's the time to do it because AVP Huntington's starting here. In a couple of days, we'll get to the entry lists for Huntington, both main draw and qualifiers. So we're going to start turning our attention now to the AVP because the international tour here is going to start really kind of dying down as we head into the Olympics. And then after the Olympics, I guess we'll still keep an eye on the Elite 16s at that point, but we are really going to be in full AVP mode at that point. And that's really where we want to be because the domestic tour is something that, means a lot to this podcast right here. Got the AVP ball in my hand. I got the AVP hat on my head. So it's year number 1 of a new management structure, year number 1 of an attempt at starting a new league. So we're going to be talking a lot of AVP with the hopes that this thing can be successful, with the hopes that we can, add what we can as far as commentary, explanation, getting you into the nitty-gritty of this new AVP league. So we're going to spend a lot of time over the course of the next weeks and months discussing AVP, breaking down upcoming events, showing where the seedings are, showing where all the stuff is. So we thought it was a good time to get you a preview. Next week on the show, we will have our odds to win AVP Huntington. We're going to get to odds to win and odds to podium. We're going to try that out this year for AVP events and see how that goes. Headed further down on the mic, Sandcast, an excellent conversation today on the pod. They did their mailbag, as they do a few times a year, back in the States, talking about the Olympic run. Him and Kame calling it quits on an Olympic push for 2024 in Paris. So really honest, open, candid conversation from Tri and Travis there on Sandcast. Just coming out today on the pod and on YouTube. So I'll get you a clip from that and we can talk about that. Everything else, the USC Dynasty rolls on their 4th straight. We have our list for the NORCECA Continental Final, and I'll get you a update on my gambling success from Brasilia, the Elite 16. Right now, we are just collecting data. I got the data. I'll show you the data. Things are going well. The balance is up. Where are we? The balance is up 19 points from where we started. We put in 100. We have 119 right now. So the data collection is not coming at a cost. Sometimes good saying is any education, no matter what it is, costs money. We're really hoping in this case that isn't the case. So we'll get you a final gambling update at the end of the show. So we are going to start from Brasilia. The Elite 16 just concluded this past Sunday, and it was a fun one. On the women's side, the favorites, the plus 300 odds to win, Anna Patricia and Duda ended up taking a first. They fought TKN, Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, in that finals. They took a second. They were plus 500 odds. So TKN, another great result, a silver medal on the international tour. Stammen Schoen for the Netherlands, they took a fourth, losing that bronze medal match to Esme Bobner and Zoe Verge Dupre for Switzerland. A huge result for them as they leapfrog their compatriots for that second spot on the Swiss Women's Federation, and they take a lead now. I think it's a 400-point lead in that Swiss race for that second spot, so a big result for them. On the women's side, Kelly and Sarah ended up taking a fifth, along with Barbara and Carol, Zhu and Gia from China, and Agatha and Rebecca, who played excellent this past week in Brazil. I watched a couple of their matches, and just fantastic volleyball players there. Mel and Brandy took a ninth. Germany took a ninth. Tina and Anastasia took a ninth. And another Brazilian team, Taina and Victoria, took a ninth from Brazil. I said it on the show last week. I'll get you that reel here in a little bit, but Brazil wins in Brazil, and that was not any different here this past week, as both on the men's side and the women's side, Brazil taking the gold. On the men's side, as I just said, Evandro and Arthur are your gold medalists from Brazil, and it wasn't an easy one. They faced off against Matthew Immers and Steven van de Velde in that finals. Immers and van de Velde playing the best tournament I've seen them put together ever. Just spectacular. A little knuckle pokey set, which I'll show you here in a minute, from Immers and van de Velde. Beautiful, beautiful. And it looked like for a minute there, van de Velde and Immers were going to take it. I think they won that first set, and they were, I think it was like 18-18 in that second set. And then Evandro went back to serve, and Evandro did what Evandro does from the service line, and won that one, and then won the third set going away. So van de Velde and Immers were really had a chance there to take a gold, and that would have been huge. However, that Netherlands men's race now looms large, because Brouwer and Mewison, who had been the assumed, number one in the federation, now might be on the outside looking in. We'll talk about that a little more when we get into the Olympic update. George and Andre took a third. As I said, Brazil does well in Brazil. Ayers and Vickler took a fourth. Lots of fourths for them this season, which is a painful place to be, but when you're the fourth best team in the world consistently over and over, you're doing something right. Partain and Benish took a fifth, put together their best tournament of the season so far. So did Evans and Budinger. And unfortunately for Trevor and Theo, they did not. I think they took a 13th in Brasilia. So Evans and Budinger creep a little bit closer now. I think they're only down 100 points in that race for the second spot. And they had that North Seca Continental Final, which we'll preview here, or which we will get to the teams list in just a little bit, and we'll show you why Evans and Budinger are now in that pole position for that second spot, even though they're still down 100 points. So that's your Brasilia bet slip. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that we had going on over the weekend from Brasilia. Up first is what I said was possibly a gold medal preview from Paris. Kelly Chang and Sarah Hughes meeting Anna Patricia and Duda in the quarterfinals. A great match ultimately won by Anna Patricia and Duda, who went on to win the whole thing. But in my mind, arguably the two best teams on tour right now, so possibly a gold medal preview in the quarterfinals in Brasilia.
Duda steps confidently into the seam to take the ball. Cheng gets her hands on her first block and the second. And Duda means business here. That is a wonderful rally.
So an excellent match there, possibly a gold medal preview from Brasilia there between Kelly Chang and Sarah Hughes, playing good volleyball there, and Anna Patricia and Duda, the best team in the world on the women's side, and I don't believe that's particularly even very close. On the men's side, I said Steven van de Velde and Matthew Immers putting together a fantastic finals match against Evandro and Arthur, and nothing prettier than the knuckle poke set. Woo! Just beautiful knuckle poke there for Matthew Immers and Steven van de Velde. Steven van de Velde, just a beautiful knuckle jump pokey set. You gotta love I love that stuff. I don't know what it is. That's my kind of stuff. I can't help it. So let me take you back 1 week ago here on Bet the Beach Live, doing my preview in Brasilia, talking about who my picks were going to be to win the upcoming Brasilia Elite 16. And let me flash back in time. Here are your odds to win for the Brasilia Elite 16. Started today. So let's say Ana Patricia and Duda are my pick on the women's side. And I know I said Ayers and Vickler, but I'm going to change that up. Evandro and Arthur, the home team. Brazil wins in Brazil. That's what we saw earlier this year. Evandro and Arthur to get their second gold of the year. This one, Elite 16 at plus 800. That's where I'm putting my money.
A few moments later.
But Ana Patricia and Duda were imperious, and gold is theirs here in Brazil with a sweep in the final.
They've done it before.
Arthur gets the set this time. This is for gold, and he's done it. And this Brasilia crowd have been thrilled by their home country heroes. Evandro and Arthur make it gold medal number 2 to add to Ana Patricia and Duda's just earlier today.
Okay, how about that? 2 consecutive correct picks, both gold medalists, Evandro and Arthur, AP and Duda. Just giving myself a little bit of credit where it's due. If you didn't see those, you can follow me, as I said, on Instagram. That's where you're going to get all that content. And I should say, while we're on the topic, want to thank VBTV, the Beach Pro Tour, for that content, as well as Simon Golding, who does a spectacular job on the play-by-play for VBTV, as does the other voice you heard in that men's call, none other than Travis Merriweather of Sandcast fame and also commentary on VBT. So thank you to them for helping get us that excellent content from Brasilia. So that's basically what we saw in Brasilia last week. Brazil wins in Brazil. What does it mean on the Olympic side? So let's start on the women's side. Duda and Patricia are at the top. I don't even really need to go through these first, 8 or 9 because everything's been set in stone. It will be set in stone. There has been a little bit of movement at the top. As we said, Australia's Clancy and Mary F.A. do continue to fall because they are not adding better results. But they do have a qualifying amount, and they are above what we think to be is going to be the cut line there. So Clancy and Mary F.A. I should check the entry list, and I will do that before next week, see if they are on the entry list for the final 2 Elite 16s, and hopefully we'll see them back out in the sand in a little bit. The important things to look at here, Esme Bobner and Zoe Verge-Dupre move into that 11th spot. They are now in with 7,900 points, 19 tournaments played. They flip-flopped with their fellow countrymen and sister, Anouk Verge-Dupre, and Joanna Mader with 7,440 points. They are now 460 points behind Esme and Zoe for Switzerland for that second country quota spot for Switzerland. And honestly, 460 points might not be able to be overcome with 3 tournaments left. The way that Esme and Zoe are playing, I don't see it. So I think your Swiss Federation women's is now locked up. I think that 460 points is too much for them to overcome, and I think your 2 Switzerland women's teams are Brunner and Herbeli and Esme and Zoe, and I think that that came to fruition here in Brasilia over the course of the last few days. The other things to look at on this women's side is that German race for that 3rd spot. Mueller and Tillman are, I think, locked in now at that 10 spot, 14 tournaments played. They have 8,260 points. Germany's Ludwig and Lippmann, Laura Ludwig and Louise Lippmann from Germany, 7,580 points. They are now in. They're the 12th qualifying team on the women's side. And Germany's Ittlinger and Borger are now 220 points back, 19 tournaments played, with 7,360 points for Sandra Ittlinger and Carla Borger. That 220 points is not an insurmountable lead there. That Germany second spot is still very much up for grabs. If I had to pick, and I think I did this a few weeks ago, I think I said you don't go against one of the best of all time. Actually, I heard Travis say that on the Sandcast. It's the very same thing I said a few weeks ago. You don't bet against the GOAT. And when you have somebody like Laura Ludwig there, you think anything can happen. So if I had to pick, I would say it was them, but that to borrow a phrase from my man Simon Golding, that Germany women's race is not done and dusted. Still a lot there left to play out over the course of the next and last 3 tournaments. Sarah Pavin and Molly McBain are still the last team in right now, sitting there with 6,540 points. But there are a few teams that are still well in reach of getting that. I think Lily and Paula from Spain, they could do it. They're only 60 points back. I think Finland, they're 120 points back. I think they could do it. Austria is a team, the Klinger sisters, 6,220 points. They are now 320 points behind. So I'd probably put them at the cutoff line at this point. I only extended it a few more so you could see that Heather Bansley and Sophie Bukovic are still technically in it. Although I think I would say at this point, anything more than 400 points I'm going to call probably out. So your cut line is probably now at the Klinger sisters for the technical bubble that still have a chance to get in. Let's take a look at the men's side, a little bit of a shorter list here. Not a lot of surprises as we work our way down. Let's start by talking about the Netherlands men's race. Alexander Brouwer and Robbie Mewison, they have been the gold standard in the Netherlands for many, many, many years. Starting with this Olympic race, it was almost a guarantee that these guys were going to be the number 1 team representing the Netherlands. And with 8,600 points, the 8th, ranked team in qualifications, the eighth qualifying team into the Olympics as of right now, they still sit there. However, let's look down. Stefan Bormans and Jorik de Groot are out right now, country quota. They are 380 points behind their fellow countrymen in Matthew Immers and Steven van de Velde. But they only have 10 tournaments played. So they have 2 more results to add, 1 challenge and 2 Elite 16s, in which they can tack on a ton of points there. So I would think they are a team that you might expect to see creeping up to 9,000, 8,800 to 9,200 points before this is all said and done. Brouwer Mewison, 8,600 points, not looking as comfortable. And, of course, Matthew Immers and Steven van de Velde took that silver in Brasilia a couple days ago. They moved up to the number 10 spot in the Olympic rankings with 16 tournaments played, 8,380 points. So this race is not over by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, Jorik de Groot and Stefan Bormans are in the driver's seat right now. And it's, for the first time in a long time, Brouwer Mewison really on their heels and scratching and clawing to qualify for this Olympics. And I think I saw Mewison put an Instagram post about how they feel like they're playing well and they got to do better because they're the youngsters, I think he called them, from his fellow country are kicking their ass. So really interesting to see good, friendly, competitive nature between teams vying for the Olympics. You love to see that. So that race is the race to watch on the men's side besides the USA race. So here's where we stand in the USA race. Miles Partain and Andy Benish are still very much in. They got 3 medals in 3 tournaments last year, 3 Elite 16s. So they came on the scene. They won quick, and they made themselves very comfortable looking towards Paris here in 2024. For everybody else, it's been a race. I talked a little bit in the opener about Tri and Kame backing out of the Olympics. They are laying their swords down. They will not fight any longer for that second Olympic spot, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. The 2 teams remaining, Trevor Crabb and Theo Brunner, who have had the lead now for a bunch of weeks. They are sitting there at 7,860 points, 19 tournaments played. They're currently the 13th team in to the Olympics for qualification purposes. They're the 2nd team on the men's side for the U.S. Federation. Meanwhile, Miles Evans and Chase Budinger, they take a 5th in Brasilia, so they add points. That's a usable result for them in Elite 16. They are now only 100 points back. They gained 300 points over the weekend, and they now sit at 7,760 points, only 100 points behind Trevor Crabb and Theo Brunner. And as we talked about in the last 2 weeks, they won that NORCECA qualifying match in Manhattan Beach a few weeks ago. So they will be the United States team representing, well, a little redundant there. They will be the team representing the United States in the NORCECA Continental Final coming up here next week. And we'll take a look at that entry list here in a little bit, and you will see why that's such a big deal. Because The points for winning that NORCECA are equivalent to that of a challenge, and the competition is nowhere near the level of a challenge event on the Beach Pro Tour. I'll show you the teams in a little bit, and you'll see why I'm saying they are almost virtually guaranteed a third or a fourth in that, which would be enough points to put them ahead of Trevor and Theo in an opportunity where they don't have any chance to win any points there. So Trevor and Theo have 3 tournaments to go. They will play in all 3 of them, and they are looking for good, usable results. For an Elite 16, that's a 9th or better. For a challenge, it's probably a 5th or better for them. And they are going to need 1 or 2 of those usable results in order to keep Chase Budinger and Miles Evans at bay. I saw Theo Brunner, it's at Lord Brunner on Instagram, post earlier today how they're packing up and they're getting ready for their last road trip pre-Olympics, and they have some work left to do. So the United States race for that 2nd spot is always one to watch. No different this year, as Chase and Miles are nipping at the heels of Trevor and Theo, and really, just like Jorik de Groot and Stefan Bormans on the Netherlands side, even though they are behind, technically in the lead at the moment right now. So it's Trevor and Theo that have to do the work over the course of these next 3 events. On the cut line is Chile's Grimault and Grimault. They are your final qualifying team, the 17th team on the men's side, 7,220 points. Diaz and Aleo from Cuba, they are out, 180 points behind. They're going to be a really interesting team to watch. Now, here's the thing about Diaz and Aleo. They still have 1 more tournament to add. So 3 tournaments left, 1 tournament to add. They're going to get a good chunk of points there, and probably with that 180 deficit to Chile's Grimault and Grimault, the cousins, they will leapfrog Chile there most likely, unless Chile can keep doing what Chile's been doing the last few weeks, and that's surprise people and win games that they're not expected to do. So that 17th spot right now all but appears to be down to 2 teams for 1 spot, whether it's Diaz and Aleo or Chile's Grimault and Grimault. Very interesting to watch there. Either team, I imagine, I know Diaz and Aleo are slated for that NORCECA Continental Final. I do not know about the South American Continental Final, but I would imagine if the Grimalts do not qualify, they would be able to participate in that. I don't know if they've qualified for it. If they have, they could get in via that Continental berth. But one of those 2 teams will not qualify via points, and right now it's Diaz and Aleo that are in that pole position with the 1 tournament result left to go. So that's your Olympic update there. The next event is a few weeks away. Off the top of my head, I actually don't know which one's next. It's probably Espinho in Portugal, and I believe it's 2 weeks away. Not this weekend, but next weekend, or it could be 3 weeks away. But we have Espinho, Staria Blanki, Poland, and Ostrava, and that's June 8th. So we have, in the next 6 weeks, we got 3 events, 2 Elite 16s and 1 challenge for the rest of the stuff to all shake out. Be very interesting to watch and follow along as we start prepping for the 2024 Olympics in Paris, France. All right, let's move back to the AVP and let's talk Huntington Beach. The entry lists are up, the entry lists are posted, and boy, do we have a murderer's row of the best domestic beach volleyball athletes that you could expect. On the women's side, TKN seeded 1 into the main draw. The A team, April Ross and Alex Kleiman, they are back. They are back in a big way. And just the other day, they posted, let me see if I can get that for you right now. The A team returning to the beach, first time playing in an AVP since 2022. They took off, 2022. They took off 2023. They took off, so 2021. So 2 years off. They are back on the tour here in 2024.
Champs here in Manhattan Beach. They continue to dominate the world of beach volleyball.
Somewhat one-sided based by rep line that was straight.
So the A team is back, and let me give you a little story from my perspective. I think I've told you guys in the past that I'm kind of late to the party when it comes to beach volleyball fandom. My first tournament that I ever watched was 2019. I think it was the Waikiki, Hawaii. It was the final AVP of the season. Taylor and Jake Gibb won on the men's side. I'm not even sure who won on the women's side. I think it was the first match I had watched, really, since I was a little kid on the AVP. So then COVID shortened year happened in 2020. They only played 3 events. 2021, it was a shorter season. At least they got out to different places, 5, 6, 7 events, something like that. So as soon as I started watching beach volleyball, all I knew was that the only team that won was April Ross and Alex Kleiman. And, they were headed to the Olympics. Everybody knew they were going to compete and, were the gold medal favorites in Tokyo, ended up winning that gold medal. Not particularly difficultly either. They kind of rolled in Tokyo in that, COVID year 2021, 2020 Tokyo Olympics. But on the domestic tour, just Kleiman and Ross won almost everything. So that's all I knew when they came out. So it's really good to see them back on tour. I'm pumped to see what they can do. And I am pumped to see April Ross and Alex Kleiman and see, what that recovery looks like. They've been out of the game for a little while now. They had their first kid, so the recovery from there can be very challenging. Not that I would know, but I imagine. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. Kelly Cheng and Sarah Hughes on the entry list. Brandy Wilkerson, mostly human parity, seeded 4th. Betsy and Julia, great to see them back out on the sand. Julia took some time off to get her knee addressed. She had, I think, 1 or 2 knee injuries that she had been fighting last season. And Betsy and Julia, people forget, are technically still a qualifying team for the Olympics if it wasn't for that country quota, and they haven't played a single event in 2024. So Betsy and Julia, winners of the Manhattan Beach Open. So the last time we saw them playing on the sands of California last season, they won the granddaddy of them all, the biggest tournament. So great to see them back. And then you go from there. Crafton Canyon, Bauer Rice, Zana's playing with Emily Day. That'll be a good team. Gina Urango has partnered up with Tony Rodriguez. Callie DeBerg and Haley Harward, I'm very high on them. I think they could have an excellent season this year. And you go down from there. Savvy Simo and Abby Van Winkle, who had some success internationally in Guadalajara just a few weeks ago. They are technically on your in your qualifying list right now, and it's a big qualifier for Huntington Beach. So expect to see the best out on the sand out in Huntington. And in a minute here, we'll talk about what that all means. On the men's side, Trev, Theo, they are your number 1 seed. Taylor, your 2 seed. Avery and Phil, your 3 seed. Try and Kame, your 4 seed. What you don't see on here is Miles Partain and Andy Benish. What you don't see on this right here is Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. They are fighting for the Olympics. They are taking this valuable time off. Actually, Chase and Miles probably even couldn't do this, or it would be very, very challenging for them to do it because they got that NORCECA Continental Final just within a couple of days of AVP Huntington. And Miles and Andy right now are specifically focused on the Olympics. So that is where they want to be. That's where they want their attention to be. And the other thing, too, and we'll get into this in a minute, is qualifying for the league. They're going to take 2 of your best 3 results, and all you got to do is win 1 of them in order to qualify for the league. So you can miss a tournament and not you make it a little bit harder on yourself, but you don't make it impossible to still qualify for that AVP league. Hagen and Logan are still playing together and playing good ball. Cody and Sean Cook, I'm going to watch for them to take a couple steps forward this year. I think that's a really, really good team. I'm interested to see what they can do. I'm really pumped to see Evan Corey playing with the legend, the Brazilian Alisson. I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. Billy Allen and Lottie are playing together. Troy's back playing with Tim Baumgren. So a lot of good teams there on the men's side as you work your way down into the qualifiers. And as I said, a deep qualifier on that Huntington side. So, all that said, let's talk about the AVP League. And what does this all mean? So, the 2024 AVP Heritage Series comprised of 3 events. Now, if you're not familiar, if you haven't been paying attention, these Heritage events are the equivalent of a Gold Series event last year. So, the biggest prize purse, the most on the line, the most important, biggest tournaments. 3 events this year. The last few years, we've gotten used to Atlanta being one of the Gold Series events. Well, Atlanta's off the list, and Huntington Beach has replaced it. So you got Huntington Beach Open coming up this next weekend, 17th through the 19th. Then you got the NBO, the granddaddy of them all, in that same spot that it always is, second weekend in August. And then the final tournament of the Heritage Series is the Chicago Open, August 30th to September 1st. And that is the entire AVP Heritage Series. You do have some tour or what they used to call Tour Series events. They're now called contender level events. And you got Denver, Virginia Beach, Wapaka, some of the spots they've been in the last few years. But you do not have that middle tier of what they were calling a Pro Series event, where all the pros would play, smaller prize purse, not these big Gold Series events. Those have been replaced with this new AVP League. We've talked a lot about the AVP League and what it means. So the question is, how do I get into the AVP League if I am one of the players playing on this tour? So winning teams of the 3 Heritage Series events earn an automatic bid into the league. So in theory, come the end of that Chicago Open, we could have 3 men's teams and 3 women's teams that have already locked up a berth into the AVP League. We also could have, let's say, TKN win all 3, for example. Well, that's only one team. So now there's 7 spots left on the women's side for the rest of these paths into the league. Teams earn points based on final standing in these 3 Heritage Series events, and the remaining open spots will be filled based on a tally of a team's best 2 results. They added that for a lot of reasons. This Olympic push was a big one. They expected that there would be some teams that would skip Huntington Beach because they're in that midst of that AVP qualification, as I just said, with Miles Partain and Andy Benish, with Miles Evans and Chase Budinger. So you have some of your top-tier teams that you want to have a chance to qualify for your league, so you're not going to prohibit them, so you do best 2 out of 3. So Miles and Andy, Chase and Miles will have an opportunity to play in Manhattan and Chicago, neither of which conflict with the Paris Olympics. Paris Olympics are over by then, so they'll be back domestically. Will have the ability to play on both of those. I will say this, and this is something very important to keep an eye on. AVP Chicago, August 30th through September 1st, conflicts with the Beach Pro Tour's Elite 16 in Montreal, Canada. Why does that matter? It matters for one very specific reason. You would expect domestic players that are excited about the league, to want to play in the league, to obviously choose the Chicago Open. These Elite 16s have a lot of draw right now for teams that are trying to qualify for the Olympics. They have a significantly less draw for any team immediately after the Olympics, because all it is points at that time. And especially with the Elite 16s, it was hard to jump up into. It's not a conflict for 99.9% of the teams that we're talking about that we're looking to qualify for this league, with one exception: Canadians, Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humana Parodies. Why is it important to them? They won the first international tournament in Canada in a very long time in Montreal last year, an Elite 16. Mel and Brandy won the thing, took gold in front of their home crowd. We were there. The place was rocking. They were the home team. They were the favorites. They were the darlings. It was huge. I would be very, very surprised if Mel and Brandy are willing to skip a Elite 16 in their home country to play in the Chicago Open. So, like Chase and Andy, or Chase and Miles and Andy and Miles, they'll be missing one of the 3 tournaments. So it's very important for them to play in the other 2 to get the qualifying points. So that's why you see them on the entry list for Huntington Beach, and that's why I would very much expect to see them on the entry list for Manhattan. They're going to hope to get one of their wins early and had that Chicago not be a big deal, because that conflict would be a real bummer. Now, here's the final thing I will say about qualifying for this new league. The AVP is holding back 2 wild cards per gender for non-qualifying teams. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. Let's say Alex and April, because they haven't played in a couple of years, because they're still recovering from having their first children, because might have some rust associated with the amount of time that they took off. Let's say for some reason, and there's no chance this happens, by the way, but I'm just giving you a theoretical. Let's say they do not win one of the 3 tournaments, and let's say they do not qualify via points to make it one of those top 8 teams. What the AVP would do is they will give a team a wild card directly into that 8-team league. So whatever the 8th team is that would be in is going to get bumped out, because the AVP in the inaugural season of its new league is going to want Alex Kleiman and April Ross in that league. I would say the same for any U.S. teams that make the Olympics. So Miles and Andy are in. We know that. Whoever that second team is, whether it's Chase and Miles, whether it's Trevor and Theo on the men's side, and we already know the 2 teams on the women's side, so Kelly and Sarah and TKN, those teams will, in my mind, get a wild card if they do not qualify. Now, for the most part, this is kind of a moot point because they're all going to compete in at least 2 of these events, I would very much expect. So I think all of them are going to qualify anyways, either via winning a tournament or via points. But if any one of those teams do not qualify for some weird reason, something happens, and they are healthy and do want to play, the AVP will get them a wild card. So what does that all mean? It means that there are some teams in my mind that are virtual locks to qualify for this AVP league. On the women's side, like I said, the 8-team Kleiman and Ross, I'm not even giving odds for that right now because they will qualify, and if they don't qualify, they get a wild card. Any team that's going to be in the Olympics, same thing. The AVP is not dumb, and what they're going to want is they're going to want the most high-profile, best, most well-recognized, best, social media presence, best everything. The AVP wants these top-tier teams to play in the inaugural season of their new league. So with that in mind, if they don't qualify, Kleiman and Ross, Kelly Cheng, Sarah Hughes, TKN, they're getting those wild card bids if they don't qualify, and they are going to. So then that next tier down goes to Mel and Brandy. I would think, too, even if you had an extra wild card that you didn't have to give and you needed to give to them, they probably would because they're another Olympic team, even though they're from Canada. So I'm giving you crazy odds there, minus 2,000 to qualify, which means they're going to qualify. Julia and Betsy, they're minus 1,000 to qualify. And then after that, that's where it gets interesting. So you got 5 teams that, in my mind, are virtual locks to qualify for the AVP League starting in September. And then after that, you got a lot of teams qualifying now for just 3 spots. I think Haley Harward and Kylie DeBerg, in my mind, are the best odds to pull that. I think Haley Harward probably is the next best player on this list. She played with Alice Kleiman at World Champs last season. She won an AVP with Tina Gradina in Fort Lauderdale 2 years ago. So I think she is one of the players that I look to qualify with Kylie DeBerg there. Megan Kraft and Therese Cannon, they had some success internationally at the end of last season. Therese had a lot of success internationally, first with Sarah Sponsel, and then with Megan Kraft. Savvy Simo and Abby Van Winkle, they've had some recent success internationally. I think they got pretty good odds. I like that pairing of Zana Muno and Emily Day Capers. Kraft and Denneberg, Jeannie Urango, Tony Rodriguez, Quiggle and Schermerhorn, and then the youngsters Newberry and Whitmarsh at plus 1,000 to qualify for that new AVP league. They would need to jump about 5 or 6 women's pairs there, in my mind, in order to qualify. But whenever you have rookies on the scene, give them a little extra consideration. Keep an eye on them. They might surprise some people this year, pull off one good result, get some points, and maybe sneak into that league. On the men's side, I'm locking out Partain and Benish. I'm locking out Budinger and Evans, and then I'm locking out Crab and Burner. I know one of those 2 teams will not qualify for the Olympics and will be stuck home here all summer. Whichever team that is going to be pissed, and whichever team that is going to come out on this AVP tour and dominate. And I think that's probably going to end up being Trevor Crabb and Theo Brunner. Trevor's going to be pissed, and Trevor's going to have something to prove, and prove it he will because he's got the talent to do it. Sides out like nobody else in the United States right now on the men's side. So I'm locking out Trevor and Crabb and Theo Brunner. You'll be seeing them play in the AVP League starting in September. Taylor and Taylor, I have at minus 2,000. Now, in my mind, if wild cards were not in the conversation, I would weirdly might have them as the best odds to qualify for this AVP League, and I'll tell you why. Nobody has been more vocal over the last few seasons about the importance of having a healthy, domestic, economically viable beach volleyball league here in the United States than Taylor Crabb. He's been a big supporter of what the AVP has done and is trying to do with this new league. You see him in the comments on Instagram defending the actions of Robert Corvino, the new chief operating officer of the AVP this season. I shouldn't say defending the actually, he has been defending the options on Instagram, defending the comments and the people criticizing what the AVP is trying to do here. Taylor believes in the AVP. Taylor loves the AVP. Taylor loves playing domestically. He loves being a professional beach volleyball player in the United States. Taylor and Taylor are well rested. They haven't been traveling to all ends of the earth trying to qualify for the Olympics. Taylor and Taylor are well practiced. They were going to be ready, and they're going to be treating this like it is their everything because for them it is their everything. So I think Taylor and Taylor are going to have an excellent year on the AVP Tour. I'd be shocked if they don't get the automatic berth via winning one of these tournaments, and I would be, I don't say shocked, but I think Huntington Beach could be a very, very nice landing spot for them to take a victory and qualify early for this this new AVP league. So Taylor and Taylor, I had them minus 2,000. If wildcards weren't in play, I think I might even have them a little bit higher on the list than some of those other teams. And look for them maybe to get a wild card too if they needed to, but they're not going to need to. Avery Drost and Phil Dahlhauser, I think that one is relatively intuitive. If Phil Dahlhauser wants to play in your AVP league, if the greatest of all time, the Thin Beast, wants to play in the inaugural season of your new league, you do everything you can to get him in there. So he's a guy that I could see getting a wild card if they don't qualify. They probably will qualify. They won't qualify via a win. I don't think Avery and Phil are winning any one of these 3 tournaments. Could be surprised there. They took a couple of fourths last season, did Phil and Avery. Actually, I think Phil took 2 fourths, but one was with Troy Field early in the season in Miami. And then he took another fourth with Avery. And that might have been Chicago to end the season, did Phil Dahlhauser. But if he doesn't qualify, which I would expect him to via points, AVP, I would imagine, would give him a wild card if they had one. So look for Phil Dahlhauser to be in on that new season of the league if he wants it. Triborn and Came Shock, we'll talk about them here in a short couple seconds. I know I've been teasing that for a while, but they are done competing internationally. They are 4th right now in the Olympic race. They are bowing out. They're laying down their swords. They're turning their attention to the AVP, and I think it's a good landing spot for them to compete and to feel good about themselves and to get some good competitive beach volleyball in over the course of the next few months. And I would be very surprised if they also do not qualify. So where on the women's side, I had 5 teams that were virtual locks, and then everybody else on the men's side, I actually have 6 teams. So what that means is we have 2 spots remaining for a bunch of really talented teams. Cody Caldwell and Sean Cook, I like them to qualify. I had them at minus 500. Hagen Smith and Logan Weber also been playing some excellent volleyball. I have them also at minus 500. So those are my 2 favorites to take the last 2 spots on the men's side. After that, like I said, Evan Corey and the legend Alison at minus 100. Then you get into the plus money. Kyle Friend and Tim Brewster. That's an excellent pairing that's got a lot of experience now at this point playing together, playing internationally, playing in adverse conditions. So I'd like them to have an outside shot at grabbing one of those last 2 spots. Troy Fields playing with Tim Palmgren. Billy Allen's playing with Paul Lottman. Bill Klinsky's playing with Chase Frischman. I love Chase Frischman. Bill Klinsky has been a very good player for many years on the tour. We'll see if he still has enough jump in those legs to do some damage there with the youngster and Chase Frischman. And then Miller Klasnick at my longest odds there at plus 1,000. It's going to be a fun season. I'm really excited about it. Tune back in here next week on Bet the Beach Live, and I'll get you some odds to win, odds to podium for AVP Huntington Beach starting in the qualifiers next Thursday. So let us turn our attention to Try and Came bowing out of the Olympic qualification on the Sandcast podcast today, where you get whenever you get any of your media platforms, whether you watch them on YouTube. Some excellent conversation today from Triborn talking about how he approached the most recent Olympic quad.
Showing up on the first page of Google might not be the best for everyone.
No one wanted to say it, but once someone said it, everyone was like, wait, you too?
Yeah. No, I've learned more. Like I said, it's been hard as ever, but I've learned more than ever. And, like, there's something to be said about that, the fact that we got to the end and we're all like, thank God it's over kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in terms of, like, where our goals are at and where our North Stars are at and what's driving our decisions and our actions. Like, there's zero regret in terms of, like, going for it and trying to take on that challenge. But next time, if I attempt it again, I think I'll definitely want to attempt it differently in terms of, like, what's my real goal? You know, is Olympics the real goal, or is it more about how I want to be and, you know, following my own values and actions and blah, blah, blah. That's what I'm realizing is, like, all right, I think I did it wrong because I wasn't enjoying the process of it as much as I would have liked to. And yes, it's a grind, but, like, I don't want to get to the end of it and be like, wow, that sucked. And it was, you know, I don't regret it because I love the challenge and blah, blah, blah. It was a worthy attempt. But I think I was doing it wrong. And at every quad, I have this, like, this weirdness that this piece that doesn't need to be there during the Olympic qualifying, and if I want to go for it again at some point, which right now I legitimately just like, why even decide that? Like, there's so much more on the table now in my life with, you know, my wife and my child, period, but also where my health's at. I'm getting an IV as we speak. Right?
So try there, getting an IV as he speaks there. Very, very interesting conversation for me today. And I urge you very, very strongly to go listen to Travis and Try Talk. Anytime, I'm going to recommend you to go listen to Sandcast because I love it. I talk about it all the time. But in this case, this was a conversation I think that was emotional for Try. So Tryborn, when he came on the scene, paired up with John Hyden, and the two immediately had success and then immediately dove into Try's first Olympic quad, which would have been the 2016 London Olympics. Johnny Hyden and Tryborn narrowly missed out on the second spot for the U.S. Federation, burned by the country quota for the first time. For 2020, then 2021 in Tokyo, Try and Trevor Crabb were going up against Taylor Crabb and Jake Gibb for the second spot. Phil Dahlhauser and Nick Lucena already having qualified for that first one. And it came down to the last Elite 16 in Ostrava, as it is this year, when Taylor and Jake realized that they had made it. Try and Trevor did not make it, and Try misses out in the Olympics for the second time. And now in 2024, partners up with Cam Schock and ends up short of the goal once again. So very, very emotional listening to Try talk about it. And we talked a little bit last week about how Travis had mentioned that the Olympics may be bad for the sport of beach volleyball. And I think you're going to hear these guys talk a little bit more about that in coming weeks. I don't think Try wants to put that out there into the world right now because it may look like sour grapes, and he's got, you know, very close friends that are still making that push and trying to make it into the Olympics, and he's going to support them in their goals there. But I think there's something to be said there for how over the course of 4 years, only 4 people from your country can make it to the highest pinnacle and everybody else is a failure. That's not a productive system for a sport, and it can't be the system for the sport. So Try now has to, you know, look at himself and look at his career as a beach volleyball player and figure out a way to justify to himself that he has been successful, which he obviously has. He's one of the best players in the world. He's been one of the best players in the United States for many years. And to see him kind of facing that fact that, you know, for the third 4-year cycle in a row, he came up short of his goal, and then he still has to, you know, reckon with the fact that, you know, that was a failure, but his career is still a success. And to take a beach volleyballer's career and put it on the Olympics, I don't think is fair, fun, reasonable. And I think that's, you know, a big part of the conversation between Travis and Try this week on Sandcast. So I urge you strongly to go listen to it. Emotional conversation, I think, for Try there, and an awesome one to hear him reckon with, you know, those issues, and just a very, very good conversation. All in all there with Travis and Try on the Sandcast podcast. So let's continue moving down our list. Got a couple last things to get to. And we talked about it a little bit last week. The NCAA Beach Volleyball Championships were this past weekend. We turned them on Sunday afternoon on ESPN, the 4-letter network. Great exposure for our favorite sport here. And guess who? It's UCLA. It's USC. USC going for its 4th consecutive NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship. And here's the final play. So Dane Blanton and his USC Trojans win their 4th consecutive NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship. That is courtesy right there of USC Beach on Instagram. They are a dynasty. The dynasty rolls on, and Dane Blanton and the USC Trojans get their 4th consecutive beach volleyball championship. That beach volleyball championship is a lot of fun to watch from Gulf Shores, Alabama. I think Bet the Beach is going to try to get on site for one of these some of the next few years. But a great tournament, great exposure for the sport on ESPN2 all day Saturday, on ESPN Sunday morning for a couple hours there. You see USC take the swim in the water. You see Dane Blanton dunking the head, wearing the rings, wearing the 4 rings. So great to see USC winning its 4th consecutive NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship. And the United States continues to have the best developmental program for women's beach volleyball players anywhere in the world. So where our men's program continues to kind of middle a little bit, our women's is going to continue to be dominant and be at the top of the world, at least up there with Brazil, as we have been for the last few years. Very quickly, as we're wrapping things up, let me get you the NORCECA Continental Final entry list. I went to bvbinfo.com for this because I couldn't find it anywhere else. Believe it or not, the NORCECA website did not give me a list, or at least I couldn't find one, for their Continental Tour Juan Dolio Final coming up May 12th through the 14th. Coming up here 4 days from now. So that's what, Thursday, Friday. Starts on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. The teams that you're going to recognize from this list, Canada's Dan Deering and Sam Schachter. You're going to recognize Cuba's Jorge Aleo and Noslin Diaz. I keep getting that wrong. You're going to recognize potentially Mexico's Gabriel Cruz and Miguel Sarabia. They're a team that's plays in a lot of these challenge events we've been watching. And that is probably all you're going to recognize from this list, besides second to last on your list, Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. So this is a tournament. What do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you got a 16-team pool. I don't know the format. Maybe it's double elim. I would guess probably double elim. And your teams that had the best odds here are very clearly Chase and Miles, Aleo and Diaz from Cuba, and Schachter and Deering from Canada, and probably in that order. So Chase and Miles have a very good shot at a gold, get those challenge level points in a tournament where Trevor and Theo aren't adding any points. So a big opportunity for Chase and Miles. It's also a huge opportunity for both Cuba, Aleo and Diaz, and Schachter and Deering, because the winner of this tournament, if they don't qualify via points, and Schachter and Deering are out right now, so this is their last hope for qualifying for the Olympics. Aleo and Diaz, like I said, I think are going to qualify via points, but let's say the Grimault cousins are able to do something really spectacular the last few tournaments here and able to somehow hold off the surging Cuba, and Cuba can win this tournament, well, they got that berth. So it should be good to watch. I'm going to do my best to see if I can keep up with it, figure out where to find the NORCECA Championship, and maybe we'll tweet about it and we'll post on Instagram, try to keep you updated on that. But a very important tournament coming up the 12th through the 14th, and a couple of days prior to Huntington Beach starting next Thursday. All right, let's wrap it up with a update on betting on beach volleyball. This is my getting record. It might be a little bit hard for you to see, but over the course of 2 days, I went to Vermont over the weekend, so I was not able to gamble Friday night, Saturday, or all day Sunday on Brasilia. But over the course of the first 2 days of the tournament, I had 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 bets. A lot of them were set spread dogs, but I got some good advice. I talked to one of my friends, shout out Doug Starbird, about my record and about how things were going. And I told him about set spread dogs and how I was really trying to game the system, and I really enjoyed that bet. And he gave me the good advice, and it's always good advice for anything, and it's don't overthink it. So I was having some good success with those set spread dogs, but I was losing a couple. And what I was really losing was I was losing on the odds. And if I had anything worse than minus 200, minus 250, and I'm putting up 10 to win 3 or 4, you're going to lose some of those bets, and you got to start winning at a 70% rate in order to make that bank account grow. What green means on the right side there is that means my balance is above my original investment. So you'll see there for a period during the day on Friday, I dipped below my original investment, learning, collecting data here. I did end up with that final balance at $119.52, so I'm $19.52 above my initial investment of $100. And what I started doing there in those last few bets is I started mixing in a couple of money lines, and then I mixed in a couple of set spread favorites. I didn't overthought it. I saw a game where I got on a money line odds minus 145 for Mel and Brandy to beat Sandra Ittlinger and Carla Borger. I said, yeah, I'm taking that. I got a money line odd for Stammen Schoon at minus 225 to beat Tayana and Victoria. And I'm thinking, I'm only getting net 444, but there is no chance the Stämmenskog lose this game. That's a winner. So I ended the weekend, and it was technically Friday still at this point. I ended my gambling weekend on a 6-1 run, and I went from $75.22 to $119. So I righted the ship. I got back in the win column, and I didn't overthink it. And so right now we're still in the collecting data phase. We're still figuring out what kind of bets we like and what kind of bets we don't like. So here are your analytics. So far, since I started gambling a few weeks ago, I have made a total of 34 bets. I've won 20 of them. I've lost 14 of them. That means I'm winning currently at a 58.8% pace. I've risked a total of $350, and I've won a total of $359, which puts my net at $9.52. Don't forget, the $10 difference is because they gave me a bonus bet. So because my balance is $119.52, technically I've netted $9.52. So I'm basically at breaking even so far after making 34 bets on beach volleyball. So is that good? Is that bad? Well, green's always better than red. I'd like to do better, and I'd like to risk less to win more. So I think finding some more set spread dogs with better odds, dabbling in some money line bets more. I'm only hitting at 50% on money line bets at the moment, but I think that's an area where I can improve. My payout percentage is in the green on that. Set spread favorites have been perfect so far. I'm 2-0 on set spread favorites. So when I see a team that I think is going to easily win in straight sets, I think I need to take that number a little more, especially if that bet looks good. I'm still not convinced in the points over and under. I may dabble in that eventually, but not comfortable with where to go there yet. And I know I told you I love the set spread dogs. I still do. Don't worry. I'm not going to get out of there. I'm hitting that 60% win percentage. The problem is the odds. And I need to be more selective about when I pick my set spread dogs, and that number's got to be minus 200 or better, minus 150, minus 100, somewhere in there. Because if I'm betting 10 to win 4, or I'm betting 10 to win 3, I'm not going to come out on the right side of it, because I'm not going to start hitting at like a 80% win percentage. I don't think I'm going to. But I do think I can get that win percentage up to about 65, 70. And if I started doing that with the right odds, Vegas may come calling. Maybe ask me to start doing some bookmaking for them. That's the goal here, Anyways, that'll do it for me. This has been a little bit of a longer show. I had a lot to talk about, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you stuck around with me. I enjoyed it, as I always do. Next week on Bet the Beach, we're going to do a preview of AVP Huntinton Beach, odds to win, odds to podium. We are not going to have any Beach Pro Tour events from this weekend to recap, but we will be able to take a look at that NCAA Continental Final. That will have just concluded when we go live next Wednesday. It's Wednesday nights, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, right here on the YouTube channel. Don't forget, like and subscribe. That really does help us out. And go to the social media platforms. Go to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Twitter. Give us the like, give us the follow, give us the subscribe. Anyways, that'll do it for me. I do appreciate you guys joining, and I will talk to you next Wednesday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Have a great week, everybody.